And a good day to you. Well, I thought today maybe when I'm waiting for my partner Larry to show up and we do a couple things together, which is the goal of this, is for him and I to do this together. It's a little bit more fun when there's two people. But I thought I'd talk about fat today. That's right. I want to talk about fat. The reason I want to talk about fat is that ever since I was a little kid, I was chubby. Ate a lot of food. My parents were in the restaurant business. So in the morning, I would eat restaurant food. In the afternoon, I would eat restaurant food. When I was in my pre-puberty or right about puberty time, I would come home from school. Strike that. I wouldn't come home from school. I would come to the restaurant from school about 3 hours after I had lunch at school, and I would eat. I would make 2 cheeseburgers and a big plate of fries, and I'd have a couple of sodas. Now, this did not bode well because I was kind of inactive. I was kind of a nerdy kid. I liked playing with things and building things with my hands and doing mechanically minded things. So no computers back then, obviously. So I didn't have a lot of activity at that point in my life. So naturally, sedentary lifestyle was not good at that point. And then after the hamburgers or the cheeseburgers, we'd go home. And since my parents had restaurants, they usually closed around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. We'd go home, and then my mom would make hamburger helper. Not very good for a little fat kid. And it was just mind-blowing the way I used to eat. It wasn't until my junior year, and I was in The Wiz, and I was the narrator and I did a couple of the dance numbers in the thing. And I was probably at that time 280 pounds, maybe a little bit more than that. And there was a friend of mine, her name was Gail Ganser. I mentioned her once before. Well, Gail was so cute, and, I really wanted her to be my girlfriend, but that was never going to happen. So I'd put that out of my mind. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I thought there's something I could do to win her over. But she was what do they call it? A groupie. She would follow bands and follow musicians and hang out with people that played played musical instruments or sang lead, stuff like that. So that was kind of her thing. But anyway, so I thought, well, I'm not giving up. But we were very close friends. We would do everything together. We'd go to places. We'd go have dinner together. We'd hang out at her house together, all sorts of stuff. And she was, pretty honest and open about, things. So it wasn't like she was leading me on or anything like that. And her and Hilda Bostic and Penny Marshall, Penny Manners, we all used to hang out together. So I noticed that Gail would always chew her fingernails. And she hated it. She wanted to stop chewing her fingernails. So I made her a bet that I could lose 40 pounds before she could stop chewing her fingernails. And this was in January, I think, is when we did the Wiz, maybe early February. So I said, well, how about to the end of school year? So she's like, okay, $20. At that time, 20 was a good bit of money, although it wasn't out of our reach, I think, at kids. Her dad was a doctor. She could always borrow it from her dad. And I could wait on tables and make $20 pretty easy. So we made a bet. And instantly, I was motivated. Maybe not so much about the weight, more about, maybe Gail would be my girlfriend at the end of this. So I started not eating so much. First thing I did was I cut out sodas. I went to iced tea, no sugar, a little bit of lemon, some saccharin in there, sweet and low. I cut out the buns altogether. I went to hamburger patties, cottage cheese, sliced tomatoes. I'd have salads, if I had a sandwich, it was a half sandwich, not a whole sandwich. I would eat, I don't know what I ate for breakfast, maybe a bowl of Life cereal, something without a whole lot of sugar in it. And then at dinner time, I wouldn't eat a whole lot. Started riding a bicycle everywhere I went. Got a bicycle. I rode from school. And by now, I'm a junior in high school, riding around on the bicycle, walking around the track. Didn't do any running per se, but I did do a lot of walking. I walked around the track a lot and just increased my activities. I started a little bit lifting weights, but really wasn't into that. It wasn't my thing to do. So it wasn't real exciting for that. But slowly I started noticing the weight was coming off. Didn't really have a scale at home, but I noticed the pants fit a little bit looser. The shirts fit a little bit looser. So I started going and going and going. Well, by the end of the school year, I had reached my goal of 40 pounds. So I was down to about 240 pounds at that point. And Gail was still chewing her fingernails. So I said, "Where's my $20?" Well, she welched. She never paid. She still to this day has not paid me my $20. But anyway, I was feeling so good about this, and I was probably 6 foot at the time. I probably still had a couple inches to grow yet. End up my senior year, I was almost 6'3". So not quite 6 foot yet, maybe right around 6 foot. So I said, well, I'm not going to stop here because even though everything was fitting better, I was still chunky. I mean, 240 pounds was still a lot of weight to carry around. So I continued on through the summer and I worked and I worked and I worked at eating right. Not exercise, not diet. Didn't ride my bike as much because in the summer I was stuck at home in Diamond Bell, which is way out in the middle of nowhere where there's nothing to do. Walked in the desert a little bit here and there. But just concentrated. Well, anyway, apparently my metabolism kicked in because it just started shedding. So it was late August. School started the day after Labor Day in September. And it was late August, time to get our senior photos done. So before we went in to get our senior photos done, I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to go get on the scale and just see how much I weighed because I wasn't really paying attention to it all that time. So I got on the scale and lo and behold, I had gone down to 179 pounds. 179 pounds. So from February to August, what's that? March, April, May, June, July, August, 6 months, I lost 100 pounds. Now, of course, this is as a teenager, so it was going to come off a lot easier than it will today. So I was like, yeah, this is great. So I went back to school and nobody recognized me. I mean, nobody. They used to call me Fat Boy. That was my nickname. Hey, Fat Boy. And when they finally realized it was me, they still called me Fat Boy, but I was in no way, shape, or form fat. I had lost all that weight, trimmed down. I was wearing a size 32 pant. Felt really good. This lasted my senior year, my year on the Navajo Indian Reservation, and my first year of college. So it lasted about 3 years. I slowly put a little bit back on. So at the end of my freshman year in college, I was 210 pounds, which to me is an ideal weight. 200 I really like, but 210 I can live with. Then I got in a relationship. Then I got married. Then the weight started coming back on, started going back up. I was not happy in my relationship. I was not happy in my marriage. The weight just kept coming on. And eventually, because of the way things were stressed and the way things were going on and my change in my philosophy on certain things, the marriage was over. And it wasn't even a little more than a year. Just under 2 years. And it was done. That was it. And so, first thing that happened again, well, I started feeling better about myself. I started eating better, taking better care of myself. And the weight comes off again. I go down to 210 pounds. Then I get in another relationship. and it's good for a little while. Then it starts getting bad, and it starts getting stressful, and there's arguments and there's bitterness back and forth. So the weight starts coming on again. I get back up to my high school weight of around 279, 280. I may have been 300 at one point during that. I feel like I was, because I looked a lot bigger than I had in high school, and I was taller. So the assumption was I had gotten up to around almost 300 pounds. Well, stayed married for 18 years. And during that time, I kept on the weight most of the time. I dropped a little bit here and there, brought it back up. I think 235 was the lowest I had ever gotten. Wasn't real happy because of that. And then a couple more times, up and down, up and down, up and down. Just kept fighting that battle back and forth. Got divorced again, lost all the weight again, met somebody else again, was doing pretty good for a while because I stayed active. I was building stuff, remodeling houses and things like that. So I was keeping the weight pretty much off. I was around 225, and that's a pretty good weight for me. It's depending on where the weight is. If it's muscle, 225 is better. If it's fat, not so much. Anyway, so then all of a sudden things weren't doing so good after about 8 years. So I started putting the weight on again. And after about 10 years, it had gone back on. And I just lost all interest. I lost all interest in the relationship. I lost interest in trying to fight battles with her that I wasn't going to win. So there was no reason even fighting them. I just gave up. And then one day I said, well, maybe if I lost the weight, I'd feel better. Maybe the relationship would be better if I lost the weight. Maybe we would have more sex if I lost the weight. So I said, you know what? I told her, I said, look, I'm going to try to lose weight. And I said, if I can lose weight, I think we'll get along better. I think we'll, be more intimate and stuff like that. And she goes, okay, right? So I do it. I work out. I go to the gym. I'm going 5 days a week. I'm running 5 miles a day on the treadmill. I'm working out. The weight starts coming off. I get back down to 205. And I feel great. But nothing's changed. The relationship's the same. So I realized I was doing it for the wrong reason. I had to do it for me. Eventually, I realized that relationship wasn't going to work. Number 3, down the tubes. And I got out of there. I got out of there and changed my lifestyle altogether. Took a break from relationships and kept the weight off. And I kept the weight off. Then in Oregon, here I came back and I put a little bit back on before I met the love of my life here. And then I started taking it off again. And finally it came off. Now I'm at about 220 and I'm pretty happy with that. But the reason I did this whole thing is because I want to start again to lose the weight. I want to get down to 200. And I got about 20 pounds to go to do that. So I'm doing this online so that I can make myself accountable and that people can hold me accountable for that. And I'm going to give weekly updates on how things are going. And we'll find out from here if I can make this goal. I'd like to make it by September 1st, which is, about 2.5 months from now. 20 pounds, I think that's doable. So I'll keep up with you. I'll let you know. Keep tuned. Click the like button, click the subscribe button. Love to have you on here. We'll talk more.